I recently saw a Wall Street Journal article where Warren Buffett was giving away $1 billion to four charitable foundations. And I'm sure a lot of people have seen in newspapers, on the news, about wealthy people leaving all of their wealth to charity, basically. Warren Buffett's one of them. Bill and Melinda Gates are part of it. I think George Lucas is part of it. There's a lot of billionaires and a lot of very wealthy millionaires that leave the bulk of their wealth, if not all their wealth, to charitable foundations. People always think, wow, this is so amazing. These people are so smart. They're such philanthropic people trying to do good for the world, giving all their money away to charity, not spoiling their kids, so on and so forth. That's true. They are doing good. But I want to be clear about one thing.
Welcome to the Wealth Uncensored podcast. Straight talk about everything that impacts your wealth. In each episode, I share what I've learned through my own experience and 2 decades of helping high net worth clients structure their affairs to minimize taxes and protect their assets for the next generation. I'll also feature special guests who are experts in their own field, sharing their knowledge and experience to help you protect what's yours. I'm your host, Jimmy Sexton. Let's dive into today's show.
The main motivation behind giving all this money to charity is not philanthropy, it's tax savings. If you're an uber wealthy American, meaning that your estate is worth more than the estate tax exclusion, which this year is $13.61 million, you're going to start paying estate tax on anything over that. The estate tax rate goes up to 40%. If you have $500 million, you're paying almost half of that in estate tax unless you do some good tax planning. Really, the only option to get out of paying that tax is to leave it to charity. People usually think, this is so great, they leave it to charity, they're not getting any benefit from this money anymore, and it's all out there to do public good. Yes and no. It really, what they're doing is they're saying, I rather give my money to charity where my family can still get some benefits and do some good rather than pay taxes, because the government has no idea what they're doing. They're completely fiscally irresponsible and are just going to waste the money. From that standpoint, I fully agree with this strategy, and I agree that they're doing more good giving it to charity than giving it to tax. The problem is they all try to sell it as the good that they're trying to do for the world, like they're these fantastic philanthropists. They are, but I do wish there was a little bit more honesty around why they're doing it. They would not be so philanthropic if it weren't for the tax advantage. If they had an option to leave this money tax-free outright to the next generation, my bet would be there would be a lot less philanthropy going on and a lot more money passing on directly to the next generation so that they have that wealth. That being said, given the option between giving the money to the tax man and having the government waste it on nonsense, or give it to a charity where it can actually do some good, I would give it to the charity. But let me explain how this strategy works, because a lot of people think once they give their money to charity, it's gone and there's no benefit from it. A lot of people think that when they see in the news these wealthy people leaving all these billions or hundreds of millions to charity, that it's totally out of the goodness of their heart and that they're not getting any benefit from this anymore. That's simply not the case. This is a great tax planning strategy. I have no issue with it. I've recommended it to clients in the past. I've seen it work phenomenally. But here's how it works. You essentially have 2 different types of charities. You have private foundations and you have public charities. Public charities are, think of like the YMCA. People donate money to it, they get a tax deduction, and the YMCA operates these various facilities that people can go and use. You have the Boys and Girls Club, Goodwill, but you have these public charities that are providing public service to the public. Then you have private foundations. Private foundations are essentially set up to support public charities. You have private foundations, they're required to give money to public charities, but they can pick and choose which ones to give them to, and they can change which ones they give them to over time. Here's how a private foundation works. You essentially set up this foundation, you apply for tax exempt status. Now everything you donate to this private foundation is going to yield a tax deduction, and all the income is going to grow within the foundation tax-free. Remember, when you donate to charity, you're getting a tax deduction of fair market value, not whatever you paid for it. Let's say you're somebody like Elon Musk that has a ton of Tesla stock that's appreciated. If he were to sell this stock there would be an incredible capital gains tax to be paid. Now, if he were to give this money to his public charity, he's going to get a tax deduction for what that fair market value is, the appreciated value, and he's not going to pay any capital gains taxes. Now this chunk of stock is in the private foundation. The private foundation can now liquidate that stock if it wants and not pay any income taxes. Whatever money or property is put in there can continue to grow and be invested, and it can do so in a completely tax-free manner. Then this private foundation is required to donate money to public charities. And the requirement is that it has to give 5% of its asset value each year to public charities. But included in this 5% is also the cost of evaluating which charities to give money to. If employees or directors or whatever of the private foundation need to travel or go meet with people from the charities that they're considering giving money to, that would be included in this 5%. Maybe what's actually getting donated to other charities is like 3%. What's important if you want this to be a sustainable strategy is that your private foundation that you set up has enough income that it's growing at a rate of at least 5% to cover the disbursements, plus enough income to cover the ongoing expenses. Ideally, you want it to be making enough money to cover the annual 5% disbursements, all the operating expenses, plus some, so that you have a profit within the foundation. Now, one of the things to remember is that in covering these expenses, you can also put more money in the foundation yourself, but you can also solicit donations from other people to keep the foundation growing. Then there comes the question, how do my family and I benefit from this? Now, I'm going to tell you, and this is what these uber wealthy people do. There's seats on the board that are reserved for family members. There might be certain positions within the foundation that are reserved for family members. Guess what? Those family members can draw a salary in perpetuity, and their heirs and future generations can all be part of this foundation, and they can all draw salary from the foundation. They can all get income paid to them from the foundation for services. Now, they're going to have to pay tax on that, but in addition to that, the foundation can cover all of their business expenses completely tax-free to the employee or director for whatever services that they're offering to the foundation. If they have to travel somewhere on foundation business, then all of those travel expenses can be paid for by the foundation. And then the assets of the foundation, even though you don't have access to it, you can't take it out and go buy a house or something like that, those assets still can be used to wield influence by giving donations to other foundations of other wealthy people or public charities, churches, foundations, whatever. The private foundation is really the only way that uber wealthy Americans can get out of paying the estate tax, which is something I think they should do, because the government, as we all know, just completely throws money away and has zero fiscal responsibility. So it's way better going into a private foundation or a public charity where it can do some public good. But I think it's also important to realize that these wealthy people aren't doing this solely out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing it for the tax advantages, and they're doing it financial security of future generations by giving them places on the board and giving them opportunities to work and earn income for providing services to those foundations. Now, again, this is an excellent strategy. It works. If you're an uber wealthy American and you want to avoid estate tax, this is really your only option. So this is the main reason why so many wealthy people set up foundations. They can be structured in a very good way to ensure that your family is always involved with it, and they always have a place there within the foundation, the ability to earn income if they're providing services and working for the foundation. In my next video that I'm going to do right after this one, so it'll come up in 2 weeks, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to educate the next generation about your principles, your values, your views of wealth, stuff like this, because I think this is something that a lot of wealthy people don't do. It's important to prepare the next generation for receiving that wealth and how to manage that wealth and what should be done with it. Anyway, I hope you found this episode informational. Look forward to seeing you on a future episode. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for joining me on Wealth Uncensored, where we help you minimize taxes and protect your wealth for the next generation. If you like our show, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. And if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at info@esquiregroup.com. And don't forget to visit Esquire Group's website for more information on how we can help you secure your wealth. I'll be dropping knowledge again next week. Don't forget to join us.